Chapter 1. Introduction. Unlocking the Power of Fluent Speaking. Hi, I am Hari, and today I'm going to talk about how to think fast and speak fluently in English. Have you ever wished you could speak English without stopping to think of the right words? Do you want to sound more natural when you speak? Well, the secret to fluency is not just speaking more, it's learning how to think in English. The faster you can think in English, the easier it will be to speak smoothly, without long pauses or hesitation. Why thinking in English matters. When you think in your native language and then translate it into English, it slows you down. It's like having a traffic jam in your mind. Thinking in English is the first step to speaking it fluently. Imagine you're learning to ride a bike. At first, you need to think about every move, pushing the pedals, balancing, steering, but as you practice, everything becomes automatic. Speaking English works the same way. The more you practice thinking in English, the faster your brain will become at finding the right words, and soon you'll be speaking more naturally. Reading as a tool for fast thinking and speaking. One of the best ways to train your brain to think in English is through reading. Reading exposes you to new words, phrases, and ideas that you can later use when you speak. When you read in English, your brain is already working in English, helping you make connections faster. It's like fueling your brain with everything it needs to think and speak quickly. Reading is to the mind what exercise is to the body. Joseph Addison. Just like how your body gets stronger with regular exercise, your mind becomes sharper and faster when you read in English. And the best part? You don't even realize how much you're learning because you're enjoying a good book or article. Techniques to improve your English reading skills. There are many techniques that can help you read better in English and, in turn, think faster. You could try reading aloud so your mouth and mind get used to forming the words together. Or you could try immersive reading using audiobooks along with the text. This helps your brain hear and see the language at the same time, which improves both comprehension and speaking skills. Graded readers are also a great way to start, as these are books written specifically for English learners at different levels, making it easier to understand new words without being overwhelmed. By focusing on these techniques, you'll not only improve your reading skills but also speed up the process of thinking in English. And the faster you think, the more fluently you'll speak. So, let's begin this journey of thinking fast and speaking fluently. Remember, the key to fluency is in your mind. The more you practice thinking in English, the more natural it will become. And don't forget, reading in English is one of your best tools to get there. I can't wait to share more tips and techniques with you in the next chapter. Chapter 2. The Power of Immersive Reading. Have you ever wondered what makes some people so fluent in English? One of the most powerful methods for thinking fast and speaking fluently is immersive reading. But what exactly is immersive reading? And why does it work so well? What is immersive reading? Immersive reading is a way of fully engaging with the language. It's more than just reading words on a page. It's about diving into English with your whole mind. When you read a book or listen to an audiobook in English, you're surrounded by the language. This helps you get used to the way English sounds and feels, making it easier for your brain to process it quickly without translating from your native language. Think of immersive reading as swimming in the deep end of the pool. At first, it may feel challenging, but the more you practice, the more comfortable you become. Soon, your mind will start thinking in English without even realizing it. Techniques for immersive reading. There are a few simple techniques you can use to make immersive reading work for you. The first is contextual reading. This means understanding words and phrases by the context they're in, instead of reaching for a dictionary every time you don't know a word. For example, if you read, "The cat jumped over the fence and ran away," you don't need to know every word. Just understanding that the cat is doing something is enough to keep moving forward. Over time, your brain will pick up new vocabulary naturally. Another powerful technique is using audiobooks alongside your reading. When you listen to a story while reading the text, your brain gets a double dose of English, both the sounds and the written words. This is especially helpful for pronunciation and improving your speaking fluency. Listening while reading helps connect the words with how they're spoken, making it easier to recall them when you speak. How immersive reading helps you think in English. When you immerse yourself in English through reading, your brain is constantly working with the language. The more you read, the more natural English becomes. Instead of thinking, "What does this word mean in my language?" you start to think in English. This helps you respond faster when speaking and makes your communication flow smoothly. The beauty of immersive reading is that it trains your brain to think in English without forcing it. When you read a story, you get caught up in the characters and plot, and before you know it, you're thinking in English. The more often you do this, the quicker and more fluent you'll become. Graded readers, your gateway to fluent reading. If you're worried about reading difficult books, don't be. One great tool for immersive reading is graded readers. These are books that are specially written for English learners with simpler language at different levels. For example, if you're just starting out, you can read beginner-level stories, which will give you the confidence to understand and enjoy English without feeling lost. As you improve, you can move on to more advanced levels. Let's say you're reading a graded reader about a mystery story. You'll be so focused on solving the mystery that you won't even notice you're learning new words. This is the power of immersive reading. It combines learning with enjoyment, and before long, you'll find yourself thinking in English without effort. Today, a reader, tomorrow, a leader. Margaret Fuller. Reading helps you grow not only in language skills, but also in confidence and understanding of the world. The more you read, the more you'll be able to think quickly, respond naturally, and speak fluently in English. Immersive reading is a fun and effective way to improve your fluency. By using techniques like contextual reading and audiobooks, you can train your brain to think in English without needing to translate. Don't be afraid to start with graded readers. They're a great way to ease into fluent English thinking. Now it's your turn. Do you use audiobooks or graded readers? Which one do you want to try first? Let me know in the comments below. Chapter 3. active reading, engaging your mind while you read. Do you ever find yourself reading but not really remembering what you just read? Or maybe you finish a page and feel like you didn't really understand it? This is where active reading can help. Active reading is all about engaging your mind while you read, asking questions, and making predictions. It's a way to involve yourself more deeply in the text, so you not only understand it better, but also improve your speaking fluency faster. Why asking questions and making predictions matters? When you read passively, you're just absorbing information. But when you read actively, you're thinking about what you're reading. You're asking questions like, why did the character do that? Or, what's going to happen next? This keeps your brain working in English and helps you stay focused on the text. Making predictions is another great way to engage with what you're reading. If you're reading a story and think, I bet the hero is going to save the day, you're more involved in the outcome. You become curious about whether your prediction is right, and that keeps you excited about reading more. By asking questions and making predictions, you train your brain to think quickly and make connections in English, which helps you speak faster and more fluently during conversations. Techniques for active reading. There are a few simple techniques you can use to make active reading a part of your routine. 1. Predicting. Before you start reading, look at the title or the first paragraph and ask yourself, what do I think this is about? As you read, keep making guesses about what will happen next. It doesn't matter if you're right or wrong. What matters is that you're thinking in English. 2. Summarizing. After reading a paragraph or a chapter, pause and explain it to yourself in your own words. What just happened? Why was it important? This forces your brain to process the information in English, which helps you remember it and use it later when speaking. 3. Questioning the text. As you read, ask yourself questions about the characters, the plot, or even the language. For example, you could ask, why did the character choose to do that? Or, what does this word mean in this sentence? The more you question the text, the more engaged you'll be, and the better your understanding will become. How active reading improves your fluency. Active reading helps you think faster and speak more naturally. When you actively engage with a text, your brain is working harder to understand and process the information. This mental workout improves your overall ability to think in English. It also helps you remember new words and phrases better because you're actively using them as you read. The more you practice active reading, the easier it will be to recall words from your memory when you're speaking. Instead of struggling to find the right words, you'll find that they come to you more quickly because your brain has already worked with them while reading. Types of questions to ask. While reading, to make your reading experience more active, here are some types of questions you can ask. 1. Who, what, where, when, why, and how. Basic questions about the story. For example, who is the main character? Or, why did they do that? 2. What is the author trying to say? Think about the main message or theme of what you're reading. This helps you focus on the bigger picture. 3. What's going to happen next? Make predictions to keep your mind actively involved. 4. How does this relate to what I already know? Compare the text to something else you've read or experienced. This helps make connections that will stick with you longer. 5. What words or phrases can I use in my own speaking? Look for useful vocabulary or phrases that you can practice using in conversations. Share your experience. Now that you know the importance of active reading, I'd love to hear from you. What techniques do you use when you read in English? Do you like to make predictions, or do you prefer summarizing? Share your favorite reading strategies in the comments below. Maybe you'll inspire others to try new ways of improving their English. Chapter 4. Extensive Reading. Building Vocabulary Through Stories. Imagine learning English while enjoying a great story. Doesn't that sound amazing? That's the magic of extensive reading. Extensive reading is a simple yet powerful way to build your vocabulary without feeling like you're studying. It allows you to grow your English skills naturally just by reading more and more. What is extensive reading? Extensive reading is all about reading a lot of material that you can easily understand. The idea is to read for pleasure, not just for study, and to read as much as possible. When you're reading extensively, you're not focusing on every single word. Instead, you're trying to understand the general meaning of the text. You don't need to stop and look up every word you don't know. The goal is to read a lot, and over time, you'll naturally start picking up new vocabulary and phrases. What's great about extensive reading is that it feels effortless. You're learning new words and improving your English without even realizing it because you're so focused on the story. And the more you read, the faster your vocabulary grows. Why stories are the best for learning. New words. Stories are the perfect material for extensive reading because they are interesting and engaging. When you're reading a story, you want to know what happens next. This keeps you motivated to read more, and the more you read, the more words you encounter. Stories also provide context for new words. For example, if you read the sentence, "The princess gazed out of the window at the setting sun," even if you don't know the word gazed, you can guess that it means something like looked based on the context. Over time, these words stick in your mind because you've seen them in action, not just as isolated vocabulary. Techniques. Reading for pleasure versus reading for study. There are two main approaches to reading: reading for pleasure and reading for study. Reading for pleasure focuses on enjoying the story without worrying too much about understanding every single word. This is the essence of extensive reading. You don't need to analyze every sentence. Just let yourself get absorbed in the book, and you'll learn naturally. Reading for study is more focused and detailed. It's when you slow down and really pay attention to the language, looking up new words, and studying grammar. While this approach is useful, it can be tiring. Extensive reading, by contrast, is fun and relaxing, which makes it easier to stick with in the long run. A great way to combine these techniques is to alternate between them. Read for pleasure most of the time, but when you come across a particularly interesting or difficult passage, take a moment to study it more carefully. This way, you get the best of both worlds. natural vocabulary growth, and focused learning. Tips on choosing the right books. Choosing the right books for extensive reading is key to enjoying the process. Here are some tips to help you. 1. Start with graded readers. These are books specifically written for English learners at different levels. They use simpler language, so you can enjoy the story without getting stuck on difficult words. As your English improves, you can move up to more advanced levels. 2. Short novels and stories. If you're ready for something more challenging, try reading short novels or collections of short stories. These are usually easier to handle than long books, and they give you a sense of accomplishment when you finish them. 3. Pick topics you love. Whether it's mystery, adventure, romance, or science fiction, choose books that match your interests. When you're reading about something you enjoy, it doesn't feel like work. It feels like fun. 4th, try series. Book series are great because they keep you engaged for longer. Once you finish the first book, you'll want to know what happens in the next one. Before you know it, you'll have read several books. Famous quote to inspire you. Here's a wonderful quote to keep in mind as you begin your extensive reading journey. A book is a dream you hold in your hand. Neil Gaiman. Books open up new worlds. Through reading, you not only learn English, but also explore different cultures, ideas, and stories. Each book you read brings you closer to fluency. Extensive reading is a fun and effective way to build your vocabulary effortlessly. By reading stories that you enjoy, you'll naturally pick up new words and phrases, making your English stronger day by day. The key is to choose books that are interesting and at the right level for you. Whether you start with graded readers or dive into short novels, the most important thing is to read, read, and read. Now I'd love to hear from you. What type of books do you enjoy reading in English? Are you planning to try graded readers or short stories? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Chapter 5. Intensive Reading. Diving Deep for Mastery. While extensive reading is all about reading a lot and enjoying stories, intensive reading is the opposite. It's about diving deep into a text, focusing on every word, sentence, and idea. Both methods are important for improving your English, but they serve different purposes. Where extensive reading builds fluency and vocabulary over time, intensive reading helps you master grammar, sentence structure, and vocabulary more carefully and accurately. The difference between extensive and intensive reading. Think of extensive reading as taking a pleasant walk through a park. You're enjoying the scenery without worrying too much about the details. Intensive reading, on the other hand, is like studying a specific flower in that park, learning about its parts and understanding how it grows. It's a slower, more detailed process, but it helps you understand English deeply. With intensive reading, you don't rush through the text. You take your time to understand the meaning of each word and how sentences are built. You might reread paragraphs multiple times to catch details you missed. This type of reading helps you focus on accuracy, ensuring you understand not just what the text says, but how it says it. That's especially important when you want to improve your speaking skills. Techniques for intensive reading. There are several techniques you can use to make intensive reading work for you. 1. Read slowly. Don't be in a hurry to finish the text. Take your time with each sentence. This allows you to focus on how the words and sentences are structured. 2. Annotate the text. Write notes in the margins, underline keywords, or highlight interesting phrases. If you come across a new word, write its meaning next to it. This helps you engage with the text more deeply. 3. Parse sentences. Break sentences into smaller parts to understand their grammar. For example, if you read the sentence, "The boy, who was very tired, fell asleep quickly," notice how the phrase, "who was very tired," adds extra information about the boy. Understanding sentence structure in this way helps improve your speaking and writing accuracy. Benefits of intensive reading for speaking accuracy. Intensive reading may take more time, but the benefits are huge, especially for improving speaking accuracy. By focusing on how sentences are built, you learn to speak more clearly and correctly. For example, if you study a paragraph and see how the past tense is used, you'll become more confident using that tense in your own speech. Over time, you'll make fewer mistakes and be able to express yourself more accurately. Step 1. Understand the vocabulary. Look for any new words. For example, confused or unsure might be new for you. Write them down and find their meanings. Then, think about how you can use these words in your own sentences. Step 2. Focus on grammar. Notice the use of the past tense: walked, was thinking, had said. This helps you see how the past tense is used to describe actions and thoughts that happened in the past. Ask yourself, how could I use this structure to talk about my own experiences? Step 3. Look at sentence structure. Break down the sentences. In the first sentence, "his hands deep in his pockets," is a phrase describing how the boy is walking. You can use similar phrases to describe other actions. For example, "she stood there, her eyes fixed on the horizon." By studying the paragraph this way, you're learning how to use these words, phrases, and grammar points in your own speaking. It's like building a toolbox full of useful English tools. Share your difficulties. Now that you understand how intensive reading works, I'd love to hear from you. Are there any parts of reading that you find difficult? Maybe it's understanding complex sentences or remembering new vocabulary. Let me know in the comments, and I'll help you find ways to overcome those challenges. Chapter 6. From Reading to Speaking. Bringing it all together. By now, we've explored various ways to improve your English through reading, whether it's extensive or intensive, active or immersive. But how do you take what you've read and turn it into better speaking fluency? That's what we're going to talk about in this final chapter. After all, the goal isn't just to read well, but to speak fluently and confidently in English. Reading gives you the vocabulary, grammar, and context you need, but the next step is using that knowledge to speak clearly and naturally. Let's dive into some practical activities that will help you bring what you've learned from reading into your speaking. How to use what you've read to improve your speaking fluency. Reading helps you build your language foundation, but speaking is what solidifies it. When you speak, you actively practice all the language rules and vocabulary you've absorbed from reading. So, how do you make that transition? It's all about practicing regularly and using different techniques to move from silent reading to confident speaking. Retelling stories. One of the best ways to connect reading and speaking is by retelling the stories you've read. After finishing a chapter or a book, try summarizing it out loud. You don't need to remember every detail, just focus on the main points. For example, if you've just read a short story, you can say, "The story was about a boy who found a magical stone. He used it to help his village, but then lost it." By retelling stories, you practice using new words and phrases naturally. Shadowing. Another great technique is shadowing. This involves listening to a native speaker, like from an audiobook or video, and repeating what they say as closely as possible. Try to match their speed, intonation, and pronunciation. It's like following in their footsteps. By mimicking native speakers, you get used to the rhythm of English and train your brain to think in the language. This also improves your fluency because you're practicing how to speak quickly and naturally. Start by shadowing small sections of text, like a paragraph or a few sentences. Gradually increase the length as you get more comfortable. Don't worry if you can't keep up at first. Practice makes perfect. Discussing books. Discussing the books you read is a fantastic way to practice speaking. You can do this with friends, a teacher, or even online in forums or comment sections. When you talk about a book, you're sharing your opinions, explaining the plot, and expressing your thoughts, all in English. This is real-life practice that helps you speak more confidently. You could start a conversation like, "I just finished reading a mystery novel. It was so exciting. The ending was a complete surprise. What do you think about mysteries?" This allows you to use new words and expressions while sharing your personal ideas. Reading aloud and mimicking native speakers. Don't be shy about reading aloud. When you read out loud, you practice speaking with correct pronunciation and intonation. It helps your mouth get used to forming English sounds, and it's a great way to build your confidence in speaking. To make this exercise even better, try mimicking native speakers. Listen to how they pronounce words and phrases, and try to copy their style. You can use audiobooks, podcasts, or videos. Over time, your pronunciation will improve, and you'll sound more natural when speaking. Reading as the bridge to speaking fluently and thinking fast in English. Reading is the bridge that connects your understanding of English with your ability to speak it fluently. Every time you read, you're filling your mind with new ideas, words, and sentence structures. When you speak, you draw from that knowledge to express yourself. The more you read, the easier it becomes to think quickly in English because you've already seen the language in action. As Dr. Seuss once said, "The more that you read, the more things you will know. The more that you learn, the more places you'll go." Reading opens your mind to new possibilities and is the key to becoming a fluent speaker. The journey from reading to speaking may seem challenging, but every page you read and every conversation you have brings you closer to fluency. Conclusion. Bringing it all together. Now that you've learned all these techniques, from extensive reading for building vocabulary, to intensive reading for accuracy, to using immersive and active reading for deeper understanding, you're ready to take your English to the next level. By combining reading with speaking activities like retelling stories, shadowing, and discussing books, you'll notice your fluency improving faster than ever. Share your favorite English books or techniques. Before we wrap up, I'd love to hear from you. What's your favorite English book? Do you have any special reading techniques that have helped you improve your speaking? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your tips might inspire others on their English learning journey.